Okay, now I'm unmuted. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. As I said earlier, it's podcast time. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Maisha. I'm the founder of the Mind ReMapping Company. And I'm super excited today about um, what I'm speaking about, what I'm talking about is this whole concept of collective think or group think, as some people call it. So I wanted to talk about this because I was have been having these conversations lately about what everybody thinks or what everybody says or what everybody knows, and I know that you may have, if you've been in conversation with people, you hear this. Everybody knows this, or most people know this, or most people think this, um, and that is an element of group think. Hey, Dr. Nicole, I see you here. That is this element of group think. So I was having a conversation today with a client of mine, and she had recently gone to an event where she was speaking, and she did an amazing job, was a semifinalist. But one of the things that happened was she was told that she had to be a certain way and like m- act in a way that went contrary to her values in order to succeed as a speaker. And so, as we talked about this today, one of the things that I um, I shared with her was this whole concept of this group think. And in any time of our lives, we've encountered this. And one of the places that we first encounter it, and I wonder if you could guess, that we first encountered groupthink is as young people, where the cliques are as teenagers, and probably even before then. Excuse me, probably even before then. But the what most people recognize immediately is, the cliques start around preteen adolescents, and this is that first element of this group think. So that what is this group think that I'm talking about? It's when everybody basically thinks the same way. They agree upon this, the way to be, the way to act, what you should do. In the case of teeny boppers, what to wear, how to talk, what to say and what to not to say. But in our society, what's taboo and what's not taboo, what's possible and what's not possible, right? And so, what's you ever hear this saying? Well, it's always been done this way. It's always been done this way, and it's worked up until now. Or I've always done it like, or we've always done it like this. So these are the prime words for when you're experiencing group think. Now, I'm not saying that collective. Some people will call it collective consciousness as well, or collective conscious. I'm not saying it's all bad, right? Because when we come together with our thoughts, with our ideas, and we can create something actually quite beautiful when we want to. And the problem with collective thought is that it can also open us up to collective limiting belief, right? And being in medicine, one of the things that I have learned is that our people, our industry, our people meaning doctors, our people are very slow to change. We are very slow and resistant to change. And I know that we're not the only industry that's like that, but I can speak for the industry that I'm in. And even at an individual level, you might find yourself, well, gosh, change and transition and change is difficult for me. But as an industry, I know that particularly healthcare, medicine, they're very slow to change. Um, in fact, a lot of the textbooks are, you know, dozens of years old, if not older. And so, but we're always there's always new discoveries, new technologies, and sometimes it's still done under the same principles. All right, so under the same thought pattern. And what happens is that in this click, and I'm going to talk about medicine as a click first of all, and then you can map on whatever industry you're in, whatever group you're in, or we could talk about the religion clique. We could talk about the family clique. We could talk about the culture cliques. We could talk about any of that, right? The way you think is the way you think, and if we're always thinking inside of the box of how everyone think, it opens us up to this this collective limiting belief. And so we have to be mindful of, you know, being swept away inside of groupthink without questioning the thing that we're thinking. Now, so, this is the work that I do. I'm all about really critically examining our thoughts. And I talk a lot about communication, but there's the internal communication and then there's the external communication. I've been talking a lot about the external communication. I want to talk a little bit about the internal communication, which is our thought. And it's natural that we be a part of this groupthink. It's natural that groupthink even comes to be, because this is how, we form community. And anthropologically speaking, it's actually better to be in community. It's safer to be in community. And it's actually, like anthropologically speaking, when you're not in community, you're kicked out of community, you're at risk. And for back in the day, you're at risk of not existing. And so, we've evolved into this sort of communal way of being, or this community mind way of being, which can be a double-edged sword. I remember when I was in, and I was doing a podcast interview, in fact, yesterday, and I was talking with the doc, and she asked me about my transition to out of clinical medicine and into my next career, and what was the biggest conversation that I dealt with. And I was sharing with her that it really was, well, what would everyone think? What would everyone else think? What would my colleagues think? Really, it wasn't really everyone else, because my family and my friends were pretty supportive, but it was really, what would my colleagues think? Because guess what? I had grown up professionally, so to speak, in this industry with a particular thought pattern, and I was stepping outside of that thought pattern. And so, I had to overcome the collective limiting belief. I had to overcome my own limiting beliefs first, and then stepping outside of that, turning back and educating them to help the industry overcome their collective limiting belief about what I was doing as an integrative medicine physician at that time. And that was a long time ago, back when Andrew Weil was first coming out with his big fellowship for doctors, which is 2004-ish. And so when I stepped out of clinical medicine to move into physician coaching, and starting to do that, it was in the early days where, now I think physicians are a lot more aware and privy to leaving a career and starting something new. And what holds people back is still fear. And it's more of it's I would say it's a little bit more common and accepted. I'm watching my words here. It's a little bit more common than it used to be. Not, I won't say it's more accepted, because there's still that big group think out there. And again, I'm talking about medicine, but you could talk about any other industry that you might be in: attorneys, education, corporate America, corporate executive, finance, whatever the industry that you're in. And so, stepping out of clinical medicine to then come be a coach, and then entering this realm of neurolinguistic programming, which is, while it's been around, and of the principles and the science of it has been around for hundreds of years, the actual collective methodology is 30, 40, 50 years old, right? So it's virgin in comparison. And so I think one of the reasons we are, as a society, we are so slow to move past the things that harm us, that harm us as a whole and that harm particular communities is because we get stuck on doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We get stuck on this is the right way, this is the only way, this is how it's always been done. And that is that collective thinking. And when someone dare step out of that, and it happens in all across the board, when someone dares step out of that, then that person is excommunicated or ostracized, whether it be small communities or large communities. And so we need to look at, and I can take it back down to the individual. This could be as if in your family as well. We need to look at how our collective thinking is, and our collective limiting beliefs as community are harming us, as a society are harming us. And for those, because there are a lot of us out here, and I'm grateful and blessed to be in communication with many people who challenge the status quo, who challenge the norm, who swim upstream, right? And who are disruptors and say the things that others won't say. And there maybe you're thinking, or say the things that no one is saying. We have to, in order to move our society, we're talking about from this from the standpoint of conquering, and I say conquering, but I mean moving the needle on preventing some of the the casualties of mental health, the lost souls of mental illness. I'm talking about preventing and lowering the preventing or lowering or decreasing the inequities in healthcare. I'm talking about um, like decreasing the violence and against marginalized communities, identities, races, cultures. The approach that people who are doing this work sometimes can be like the days of old. And when we begin to challenge our own ideas collectively, and here's what happens. I'm gonna sidebar for a second. What happens is our brain, it likes to categorize things, right, in order to manage all the information. I talk about this all the time. We're dealing with so much information, 11 billion million bits of information per second. We're dealing all this information. And so the brain has to chunk it and categorize it. And so the brain is categorizing things. So we're always categorizing things. We're putting things in categories, right? And that's actually not a problem, except what happens is when you categorize something, to categorize it puts it in a box. And when a bunch of people categorize something, when a group of people create categories or create a category way to do things, then that's where it becomes sort of that group, that agreement. When you get agreement on this sort of chunk or category, then you start to get that group think. And so what happens is we put a box around that category. And from inside the box, it's hard to see new solutions. It's hard to see new possibilities because we're, inside the box, inside the category. And so one of the things that in our NLP training we start to train people to do is to look at how can you pop your head outside of the box. This is why it's good to have community. This is why it's good to be in communities that are uncomfortable to be in sometimes. Communities that are not necessarily all like you, in the way you think, in the way, in the culture, in anything, right? When you start to exist in diverse community and welcome the ideas of others, then it helps for you to be able to pop your head out of that box and see things from a different perspective. When you exist outside of your own box, then outside of your own category, then it does help to see new solutions. And so, we need to very much be mindful of this collective thinking. Like I said, it's not all bad, right? But we need to be mindful that we're not getting swept away into collective limiting beliefs in the process. So if you out there doing your thing, have something on, have a mission, have a set of values or a mission on your heart or a purpose in your heart, and it doesn't sound like everyone else's, and you actually don't hear anyone saying it, it's okay to speak that, to share that. And and you will find tribe that actually does think that way, right? It's rare, it's very rare that there's absolutely no person in the world that thinks like you. It's very, very rare. You will attract those people the more you express those values and that mission and those ideas. And if we, as people who are stepping outside the box, who are popping our heads up outside the box, who are breaking away from collective um, limiting beliefs that we hear and see, when we begin to hear and see those, then that's the time to really break away. And you'll know. I talk a lot about listening to your thoughts, but also listening to your body, because if you're being swept along with a group think and a group limiting decision or belief that does not align with your core values, you will feel it in your body. There will be what some people call cognitive dissonance. That's like when you feel like something's off. This is not right. You can't put your finger on it. You'll feel it, because some people ask, well, how do I know? That's how you'll know, because there'll be sort of this thing that happens and you won't be able to put your finger on it. And that's the first clue to, number one, go examine your own values, go examine your own beliefs, and then say, am I aligned with what's really going on here? And if not, really discover what it is that you're aligned with. And sometimes that's hard for people, because when we've been raised, I mean, I'll be 48 in April. Yes, I said my age on air. I'll be 48 in April. And so I've had 40, however many years to think how I've thought. So if something comes up for me and I'm like, this is off, I have to unlearn that. This is kind of what I do in my work. I help people unlearn these limiting thoughts and beliefs and decisions. I teach people how to help others unlearn these limiting beliefs and thoughts and decisions. That's what I do in the work. And so, takeaway points, right? Understand that we exist in a collective in a collective mind, whether we want to or not, in many ways. Not all of the things we're going to be collectively thinking, but there's often a lot of overlap, just by way of where we're interfacing. There's the social media. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of ways these days that we are engaging in collective thinking, group think, and inside of that, you have this risk for um, collective limiting beliefs and decisions, which can, as we have seen in our country, in our world, can be very dangerous. It can be dangerous for our health. It can be dangerous for the health of whole communities. And so we have to become very discerning about what we're believing, what we're believing, that what suggestions we are accepting from societal collective belief and thought. We have to always be thinking about what is it that we as an individual believe, and does that align with the collective thinking in the community that we're in? And if it doesn't, we need to find the community that has that alignment. And then we want to be careful about listening for, well, even in the communities that we want to be in, is the what are the collective limiting beliefs? What are the collective limiting decisions that are being made? And being mindful that we don't get swept away in that. And it may be that we are the access to the community that we're in, shifting the collective limiting belief. And so consider that as well. And if you're unsure and you're in a community, or you're find yourself in an institution, or in academia, or um, in company, or in health industry, or whatever industry you're in, listen to your body, because your body will speak to you. There'll be a discomfort, a physical discomfort, a sort of a mental, like, offness, I'm going to call it, right? A mental offness, and emotional offness, where there's not a matchup. And that is a signal from your unconscious to examine your beliefs, your values, what's important to you, and whether you're on an aligned path in that way. That's the message for today. And here's the thing. This is the work that I teach. So I'm always going to bring you tools from the work that I do. And I teach neurolinguistic programming. By now, if you follow me, you know this about me. But I'll say it every episode. And so what I want you to do is, I'd like for you to go and take this out into your life today. Go and examine, where are you in being swept away inside of collective groupthink, collective limiting decision. Go and examine, what are your beliefs and values, and is this collective limiting belief something you want to step away from? And if so, then I invite you to reach out, and let's talk about how we can do that in the training. All right. And you can do that by reaching out to me, clicking on the if you're with me on Instagram, bio link, and that'll show you how you can learn more about the training, the dates coming up, and reach out to me to be in the next training. If you're with me on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, you can reach out to me directly, message me, or go to my website, the website that you see popped up here on the screen if you're on the other channels. The website for those listening to the podcast on replay is remappmymind.com. That's the short version, remappmymind.com. And share this episode. Share this episode with someone in your life, a friend, a colleague, a family member, who would benefit, this would make a difference with, right? And of course, I would love to hear your comments. I check the comments. I reply to comments. So if you're listening to this on replay and you have a comment, you want to share how it's going, what you've discovered, leave a comment, because I love, love, love responding to comments. And so that's all for today. I look forward to next week. I think what we're going to do next week is it's the end of the year. And I think I might actually do an end of the year meditation live. So if you want to experience that, then you'll join me next week. I'll post it ahead of time. Until then, you all stay safe out there. And I will see you on the next session. All right. Take care. Namaste.